Hello, everyone, and good morning. We will allow 1 or 2 minutes so that everybody can join, and we will see you in a few. And now, officially, good morning and welcome to the Embody webinar. This is episode 2 of our series. I am Will, Director of Business at Embody. And before we begin, we want to make sure that you're familiar with Livestorm, our webinar platform. At the bottom right of the screen, you will see the chat button. Please feel free to say hello, tell us where you're joining us from, and leave your comments. Next to it, you will see the questions button. Please type your questions throughout the presentation, and we will make sure we address them at the end of the session. We thank you for joining us today, and we're very excited to discuss how to empower your team with collaborative digital creation. I want to introduce our speakers for the day, Mr. Ben Sosinski, VP of Product, and Ellie Kilby, Head of Global Customer Success at Embody. With that, I'll leave the floor to Ben. Hi, Ben. Hi, Ellie.
So it appears that Ben may be having some issues with his camera and microphone. So we'll just give one moment for him to rejoin.
Sorry about that, guys. That was all right. So let me start back over. So thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Ben, head of product here at Embody, and Ellie and I will be kind of tag teaming on this presentation to touch on different topics throughout the presentation. So this is our second episode in a 6-part series intended to give insights to help advance DPC initiatives to our audience, from digital creation to digital material creation to range building, and ensuring that the right tools and processes are in the right hands of your organization, which was something that we'll be focusing more on today. We're doing this from experience, as we have staff members with years of real world experience doing digital transformation out in the field, and also onboarding customers onto our own platform, where we hear about the war stories and what these organizations have been doing to overcome their own challenges. And so we're sharing all these insights with you. This is a review of the last webinar that we did back in September. What we did in this webinar was we answered the question, why is it so important to embrace digital transformation? And we also provided tips and on how to get started with your digital transformation journey. Okay, and over here in the bottom left-hand corner, if you see my mouse here, is a QR code if you'd like to check out the recording, or you can also go to embody.com/webinars, in which you can, there's a link there for you to download the recording. So today, we'll be peeling the onion back a little and addressing some of the challenges that don't really generally rear their heads until digital adoption has begun, but is still in its infancy. Okay, so this is a good way to course correct at the beginning of the journey. And we'll be assessing areas in which analog processes can be leveraged to advance digital transformation. We'll help you optimize your personnel with the tools designed to make DPC possible for both brands and suppliers. And we'll also discuss how to best allocate your 2D and 3D resources to get the most out of your design teams. And we'll also demonstrate how products like Embody can help brands and suppliers design and collaborate much more efficiently together once digital transformation has begun to take root. So this is a little bit of a review from our last webinar, in which we discussed this chart over here, which was basically feedback from industry decision makers on the barriers of DPC, and basically they distill down to these 4 bullets. So the first one here in the list is how many employees actually fear being replaced by technology in their jobs. And these jobs could potentially change to a point in which they are unrecognizable of what they are today. So this can provide friction and initial, negative attitude towards the challenge that lies ahead. So we want to get rid of that problem as quickly as possible, and we'll talk about that here shortly. There'll be near-term efficiency drops as teams learn the new tools and processes involved in digital product creation, which can also add drag to the time it takes to transform. And teams must plan for this. There's, of course, investments in both time and money as stakeholders adopt DPC, and also digital transformation is often restricted to individual programs or projects that affect, maybe just a small number of departments. So stakeholders involved in the process really struggle to see the full benefits of digital transformation if they're only tied to very specific small projects. Okay, so we want to expand that and to make sure that we're capturing real business problems and solving them so they can be exposed to the organization to show progress. And the key is to find the right balance between placing bets, provoking fast results with innovative ideas that solve real business problems, and building the solid ground for digital transformation. So to begin here, we need to get past that first challenge that I was talking about, which was the fear of being replaced. Okay, so to do this, we must remind everybody on the onset of digital transformation that throughout history, there has always been progress through embracing new technologies, and that the legacy skill sets, the analog skill sets, are always important even after the transformation is made. So for instance, this top one here, focus groups. Focus groups for decades were one of the only ways that to get customers' perspective on new trends. And now there are many tools out there that can help scour the web, for instance, like Instagram, to gauge how audiences in general are reacting to new trends in the market. And we are able to gain a huge amount of information very, very quickly. However, the focus groups still have a purpose, and that they provide a powerful way to get in front of specific potential customers and gather more specific information that relates to your business specifically, rather than spending time on getting insights on the broader market tendencies. Okay, so and getting to the core now can be more efficient in this way. And in addition, focus groups can be handled remotely and for less money than before through web-based tools. So the fundamental analog process has not gone away. It's just augmented and made better through the digital world. And we can find this in many different instances. So retail and e-commerce. I mean, stores aren't going away. they're changing. The landscape is changing pretty drastically, but there still is a need for retail. But even though that e-commerce has taken a hold and has been there for many years now, and we found a way to mix the two to maximize profits. Sketches, paper sketches for designers, they haven't gone away. You may actually draw on paper because it feels comfortable to you, but then scan those, move them into Illustrator, and then from there, the process can become more efficient. But the sketches never went away. Paper patterns are another example in which technical designers will continue to use paper patterns to fold and to interact with. There's tactile behind it, and that experience helps them in the 2D CAD systems to be more efficient and be more accurate in their 2D CADs. And then the 2D CADs continue to be a method of storing these files in a much more efficient way, to be able to search and find them, to be more accurate, to help the efficiency down the line. Physical samples, yet another example. They haven't gone away, even though that the 3D CAD systems have taken root. So in the end, in none of these cases has the analog skill set gone away. In fact, many cases they're still much alive, just augmented to provide more efficiency and avenues for creativity. And so I think Ellie might have a few more examples here.
I was going to say, Ben, sorry to interrupt you, but just wanted to say you're completely right here. I remember when I first joined the industry and I went from hand sketching to Adobe, and I was so concerned about losing my creativity because I thought I'm just going to be limited by what I can do in these programs, which at the time was really not a lot. But as I learned to use Illustrator and Photoshop and I became much more proficient in the design tools, I found that the quality of my work actually improved, and I could easily and efficiently create these designs that would have taken me way longer to get to using hand sketching. I've also seen this hybrid way of working that you were talking about working really well. I've sat in so many handover meetings with pattern makers where they sit folding these bits of paper to figure out the best construction methods. They'll demonstrate it to the team, but then they go into their 2D software to make that accurate pattern. So traditional design methods, they're still really valued, but at this point, no one wants to give up their digital tools because of the efficiency and the accuracy gains that you were talking about.
Yes. So yeah, just to kind of reiterate this idea is it's really important to get ahead of this issue with your team early in the process. And it just needs to be instilled early that employees don't have to be scared of losing their jobs due to technology. Here's a lot of examples. They just need to be scared about losing them by simply unwilling to embrace technology because the technology is here. So yeah, so moving on to the next slide here. Ellie will take it on from here.
So as Ben clearly described, we know that the industry can adopt digital tools effectively. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the 3D process and who should be doing what, because this can be a real stumbling block when people start their DPC journey. It's really important that you get this workflow right. And the one on screen is something that I've seen tried and tested and gives the best results, in my opinion. I remember when 3D was first introduced, and a lot of people thought that designers should be able to work directly in the software, creating these shapes, which would be amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's really not as simple as that. 3D garments are created using 2D patterns in the same way that you would a physical garment. In fact, it's so important that the same pattern is used to create the digital garment as the physical counterpart. Otherwise, it's not going to be an accurate representation of the final product. So whilst most designers do have some pattern knowledge, it's by no means their specialty. So if you challenge them to work in 2D, you're just going to limit their efficiency and creativity with an end result that's probably not that effective anyway. So great, you think, okay, if it's all about the 2D patterns, then let the 2D pattern maker work in 3D. But again, much more complex than that. There's so much specialist work that needs to be done in 3D. Things like positioning the pattern pieces, the digital sewing, the fabric assignment, draping, styling. So what you really need to invest in order to see the best results are trained 3D technicians. Now they are going to take the 2D patterns that are made by the pattern maker, which match the spec given by the garment tech and the design given by the designer, and as if by magic, make these wonderful 3D shapes come to life. So we now have a clear workflow of 3D garment creation with stakeholders aligned to the correct tools for them. But even though each of these have their own responsibilities, it doesn't mean that they should work completely independently of each other. There is always going to be, and there should be, back and forth between all parties to ensure that the rendering is an accurate representation of the original design. There may also have to be some compromise here and there to make sure the garment is feasible for bulk production, or, perhaps more cost effective. Also, designers might decide to alter their design in certain places after seeing the initial rendering, as that's the first time they really are confronted with an accurate representation of what the final garment is going to look like. So the best results can always be seen when these stakeholders work closely together with an understanding of the value that each can bring to the creation process. Constant communication and collaboration is required, whether it be internal in a supplier or between the supplier and brand. So how can we manage this communication, especially when everyone is still working in software that is specific to their skill set? Now, I've experienced a few different ways that this is currently done, and whilst all of them have improved the workflow, they do still have their limitations. So the first way you could look at is by arranging digital review meetings, where all parties meet either physically or virtually, and the 3D garments are presented on screen, usually by the 3D technicians. Now, this is a great way to get immediate feedback from all parties at once, but oh my gosh, can they be super hard to arrange, because we know how busy everyone in this industry is, and they take some time to get through. It also means that multiple assets need to be ready at once to make those meetings effective and worthwhile, but it means that feedback on some of the styles could be delayed if they're ready ahead of time, but you need to wait for the rest of the range to be complete before scheduling the meeting. Another way that teams can collaborate is by sharing 3D files. I've experienced in the past suppliers sharing the original 3D file with the brand for them to comment on or make changes themselves. But this requires both parties to have the same software and the same skill set. And again, it limits the visibility of those files to the specific people in the organization that has access to the software. Now, you can render these images and share them as like static image files, but you can't interact with these in the same way. Also, then feedback only exists in a specific email chain or WhatsApp group, which if you're not a part of, then you can't track the history of a garment. The third way, which I've seen, which is perhaps the most effective, I would say, in terms of sharing and communicating on 3D assets, is through online platforms. This is where digital garments are uploaded and people can view and comment on the styles, plus see them in full rotation and zoom in and zoom out. However, in most cases, platforms don't allow you to interact with these in a meaningful way in terms of making changes to the designs. Plus, range building can be really hard because you have to go in and view and feedback on the styles one by one without the context of inspiration images or the design brief. Another issue, aside from communication, if we could just move to the next slide, please, is where you should focus your 3D capacity. As we've discussed, creating 3D garment shapes requires skilled technicians working in specific software. So inevitably, that means the demand on their time can be overwhelming. You may have hundreds and hundreds of samples going through on a weekly basis, but only be able to process a fraction of these digitally because of this bottleneck. In a lot of cases, teams will decide to focus their digital energy on fashion lines, as there is more that can go wrong with these in terms of shape and proportion. It is crazy the number of remakes I've seen for a single product just to get small details and proportions right. Sometimes moving a seam line by a centimeter or even less. So it does make sense that people want to focus their 3D resources on the area where you can reduce remakes by the highest percentage. However, it means that core lines are often neglected, and this is a real shame because they are often the ones that have the highest volumes associated with them. As the shape is mostly fixed and the seasonal updates occur through color, graphic, or texture change, it can also be a sticking point between the 3D technicians and the 2D designers. As the 3D techs want to move on and create new shapes and new silhouettes and not have to do all these design changes. And the 2D designers want to be able to make these changes themselves without being reliant on other people. And even though there is less that can be perceived to go wrong, viewing these styles in 3D is still extremely important. Any issues regarding colors or graphic placement and scaling can be ironed out much earlier in the process without the need for multiple rounds of strike-offs or samples. So you may now be thinking, great. Even when I build 3D into my workflow, I'm still going to be confronted with these issues of communication and limited 3D capacity. But this is where Embody has the solution for you. Embody is an online platform with a difference. You can upload 3D garments produced by any 3D software and make design changes to these online without the need to download any software. It is super easy to use. And even though some training is required, it's very minimal due to the fact that you're not having to work with 2D patterns. This means that designers are able to work on visual changes and focus on what they do best, allowing 3D technicians more time to work on new shapes and silhouettes. So what you're essentially doing is increasing your overall 3D capacity, but by using the same personnel resources that you currently have. When it comes to communication and collaboration, Embody also has you covered, as well as the ability to comment on specific garments and products. You can also range build and brainstorm with 2D and 3D assets in our presentation area called Spaces. Any changes to products track in real time, and this allows product leads and buyers to go into Spaces and view their evolving range, having access to the feedback submitted by all parties. As well as this, through Embody's digital asset management service, stakeholders have access to the most up-to-date assets at all times, whether these are 3D garments or any specific product files related to them. So rather than me just go on about the benefits of Embody and what it can bring to your workflow, we would love to show you. So I'm going to hand you back over to Ben now, who is going to introduce Embody and Work.
All right, so here I am. What we're going to do today is, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, all good.
Okay, perfect. What we're going to do today is a little bit of role play, which is kind of fun. I'm going to play the role of a buyer, and Ellie is going to play the role of a supplier who is representing basically her design team. And I'm going to put together a brief for Ellie's team to, for my next seasonal line. So I'll get to that here in a moment, but first I'm going to introduce the platform to any of the new members here, just briefly. So this is the Embody platform. It is entirely web-based. There's no need to install any software or whatnot. And like Ellie said earlier, it's platform agnostic, 3D platform agnostic. So it will actually consume and uploaded files exported by any 3D authoring tool out there. So that includes Browseware and Clo and Optitex and others as well. What you're seeing right here is the product grid. Behind each of these is a 3D model in which designers and other stakeholders can interact with the products and add colors and all over prints and graphics to the products here, all via the web. All right. So we'll come back to this. Ellie's going to take you through more of the product workflow. What I'm going to focus on over here are spaces and the library. Okay, so as a buyer, I want to set up my brief, and I would do that within spaces. So what are spaces? So let me click on this one right here to show you. So spaces are what we call an infinite stage or infinite whiteboard that allows any stakeholder with access to the platform to create beautiful presentations and to be able to share files with other stakeholders in the process through a space by adding text, imagery, and 3D models. So what Spaces does is it allows us to intermix both 2D assets and 3D assets into a space that can then be shared and presented effectively to other people in the process. So in this case, I've created a brief here for a retro varsity graphic tees. And over here on the left, I've provided some imagery. I can do so by simply using some of the tools we have over here on the left to add images. So these are just files that I've grabbed, over the web. I can add text. I can add, arrows and things like that. And we can also comment. And maybe most importantly, once these boards are put together, then I can also create presentations by using frames. So we can outline areas within a space and then simply, create these frames or that interact, a lot like a PowerPoint presentation in this case. So it allows teams to kind of walk through their presentation if you do it online or in a room together. So not only can you upload imagery, but we can upload PDFs and AI files and 3D files and all sorts of stuff. And also the variants that are created within the platform, which we'll show you all of this here in a minute. So just to get started, what I want to do is finalize this brief for Ellie. And what I'm going to do is just simply add a image of some Pantone colors that I would like for her team to stick to as they fulfill their design requirements here. So here we go. So I've just uploaded an image of Pantone colors and I want to add it here. And I can just simply scale this image, get it proper. Okay. And great and wonderful. So my brief is ready. And so what I'm going to do now is just comment here to Ellie that things are ready to go. So I can mention her. Oops. And just select her name here, and she will get a notification once I comment here. So for new season, tees is ready for you. All right, I'll send that. She'll receive an email and it will give a link back to this board. Okay, but before that happens, I want to actually upload some assets into the library that her team can leverage on all the products that are part of Retro Varsity here. So what I'm going to do is go to my library, and here we have categories up above of colors, materials, prints. These are all over prints and graphics. So in the colors section, we have the ability to search for various colors. Just last week, we developed a integration with Pantone. So now all customers, Embody customers, have access to all Pantone colors of these Pantone colors within their library. So it makes it very easy to search for products and also create different sets or palettes that can be leveraged on the products here. And we'll show you that here in a moment. So for the purpose of this brief, I want to actually search for a couple colors here. I'll search for custard. So here's the custard. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to select the Retro Varsity set over here on the right. And I'm going to drag my custard over here. And then I'm also going to look for pumpkin. And then the pumpkin color, I'm going to drag this here as well. And then I can reorder. I can, sort by hue or name or saturation, or I can drag and drop and create my own order myself. Okay, so now Ellie can take this color palette and leverage it on her products that she sets up within the platform. I'm also going to add an all over print. So I can come over here, I can hit the plus button. I'm going to drag an SVG file. SVGs allow Ellie's team to be able to take those and color them in any way, shape, or form directly on the product extremely easily. So what I've done is my team has created an SVG. I've uploaded it here, and I'm also going to add that to its own set as well. Other categories that we have up here. Digital materials. So we have a webinar that we are going to discuss on methods of creating your digital materials and organizing them, and also artwork. So in this case, you can upload not all over prints in this case, but single artwork files that can be then shared on all products. And we also have a font section as well. If you want dynamic text to be placed on your products, you can upload your own fonts and add them directly to products as well. So here are some areas that we have here in the library. So now I believe that Ellie's ready to take on the rest of the work here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
So as Ben said, I'm taking over the role of a designer sitting on the other side of the world to Ben. So I have got an email alert saying that I've been added in the platform and I'm able to go in and view the brief that Ben has set up for me and comment back that I'm working on it. Now I can see that Ben has already uploaded a lot of the assets for me to work with, so fantastic. I get to do the fun part, which is designing. So as a designer, I have no knowledge, let's say, of 2D patterns or 3D, but that doesn't matter because I'm able to go into the platform and work with these preset models that have been created for me by the 3D team. So the brief was for t-shirts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the model that I want by going into my tag section and searching for my tee. Now you can tag your products however you want. So if you wanted to tag products per season or however, then it's very easy for you to find them. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go for this cropped polo because crop styles have been on trend recently. I'm going to duplicate this and just call it Retro Varsity Polo as it's for that particular trend. And the reason I'm going to duplicate it is so I still have my master file available to me. Now, I like to be organized. So what I'm going to do is when I go back into my product grid and my folders, I'm going to create a new folder in my Spring Summer 24. And I'm going to call this my new trend name. And I'm just going to drag and drop that product that I've duplicated into my new folder. And you can do this however you want. So it's very easy when you've been working in the platform for a number of seasons. You can build this hierarchy of folders and subfolders and get super organized. So you can see my 3D model is now loading. I have to apologize. My internet can be quite slow sometimes, sitting on this side of the world. But this is going to load for me in a moment. And you can see here, I have this 3D blank canvas that I can really get creative on. Now, the first thing I want to do is add my colors, because at the moment I've got 3 areas of the garment, my main fabric, my rib, and my button. There's not much I can do with them. So I'm going to manage my colors and add the color palette that Ben set up for me previously. Now I want these colors to be available for all components, so I'm just going to toggle that option. And then I'm able to apply these colors directly to my garment. I'm going to quickly save my thumbnail after I've made a color change perhaps, but this is still looking quite plain to me, because the brief obviously required lots of graphics, different layering. Plus, I really want to do something with that SVG stripe that Ben added for me. So I'm going to go in and add an all-over print. I can go to my library and easily select this SVG stripe. If I couldn't see it straight away, I can search just again according to the set that has been created. So I'm going to add this. I can play around with my scale very easily if I want to completely oversize it. But I think that original scale was working quite well, so I'm going to put it back to 15. And I'm going to apply my placement. But I can see here, these default colors that were created are not quite right because they're blending in with the background too much. So by adding a SVG file, it allows me to see these color blocks. Now this was created in Illustrator with 2 colors. So Embody automatically reads those 2 colors when it's brought into the platform. If it was an 8-color print, it would read the 8 colors. So again, I can go and choose my color palette that Ben left for me. I can name my color blocks so they're easy to recognize, and choose default colors as well. Once I'm happy, I'm going to update this. And I also might want to be able to make this optional, so turning the print off and on. So then when I'm designing, I can easily turn my print off and on, and also change the colors of the print directly in the platform. So again, I'm going to save this one. And I might want to make another version as well, playing around with the different color combos. And I might just call this colorway 2. So quite happy with the way this is going so far. But again, it's all about those layered graphics when I go back to the brief. So what I want to do is now add a placement. So I can easily go to my library. Again, I'm going to choose my Retro Varsity set and see what Ben has provided me with. I think I like this like FA placement. That might be quite nice on the chest. So I'm able to see my graphic on the 3D garment. I can scale it by using my draggers, or if I want, I can just enter the dimensions on my right-hand panel. And what I absolutely love, as well as being able to see it on 3D, I can also get visibility of my 2D pattern board. So this grants me a huge amount of accuracy because I can also play around with my guidelines. So if, for example, I knew that I wanted this graphic to sit 8 centimeters below my front neck drop, I can just type that into the system and it's going to place it for me. So I'm going to apply my placement, happy with how that looks in terms of the position, but it's looking a little bit flat for my liking. But again, don't worry, Embody's got you. We can go to Effect and apply different techniques to basically flat PNG files or SVG files that have been added. So we have a huge range of effects in the platform. I might want to play around with a flock, and you can see I get a flock texture here. It's not going to suit this style, but I just want to show you some of our others. Here we have a foil print, which reacts to the light as I move my garment around. So it really brings your graphics to life. In this case, I think I'm just going to go with an embroidered stitch. And I want to make it a little bit chunkier. So I am going to increase the scale of the embroidery within the actual graphic. So I'm happy with this. And I am now just going to save my colorway again. But I noticed in Ben's brief that he wanted me to think about my own graphics as well. So I saw this image as I was doing my research, and I've created a graphic around it. So I might want to turn my print off to make my graphic more obvious. And I'm just going to drag and drop my file from my desktop. So even though it's not in the library, I can easily add it. Again, I'm going to position it as I want on the garment, and I'm going to apply my graphic here. But I know that this is really not enough for this particular buyer. I know Ben can be tricky sometimes. So what he will want to see is the original image file, and he might also want the Illustrator file because, you know, I'm not the only supplier he works with, and he might need to brief suppliers for other products with this graphic that I've created. So I've added for him the Illustrator as well as the inspiration image. Now what I'm going to do is I am just going to save this new variant. And once that's saved, I want to leave a comment for Ben because I want to make sure that he's happy with this before I start to add it to my overall range plan. So I'm going to at him and say, what do you think of this graphic? Files are in the files section. And then he's going to get an automatic alert, and he'll be able to see which area of the product I'm talking about, as the comment always remains fixed to the area of the garment that you've created it on. So while I'm waiting for a reply from Ben, I might want to create some special views for this product to zoom in on particular areas. So I might want to zoom in on my collar detail just to really highlight this. And I also know that I've got a chest graphic on this position for certain variants. So I'm going to add this as a detailed view. I might also want to zoom in on the hem to highlight this new graphic that I've created. So I'm going to create another special view here, which can be really useful when I want to download these images for use outside of the platform or use the images in my presentation. Oh, and fantastic. I can see that I have a new comment from Ben. So I'm going to go back into create and see, okay, love it, approved. Oh, and he's thanked me for the original AI. Fantastic. So I am quickly going to resave my variants to make sure that they've all updated with those detailed views that I've created. And once they've saved, then I'm ready to start my range building. So here I'm going to go back into my spaces. I'm going to load this one, which I did a little bit of work in earlier. And I'm going to start to add my 3D assets and range build with them and present with them. So just in the same way that Ben originally added his 2D images, like the mood boards, I am going to go to my plus and just choose my product. I can easily search for that specific product, and I can choose which colorways I want to include in the presentation. In this case, I want to select them all, so they all get added. And again, I can scale them and position them in my presentation. I also have this details page where I have chosen some of these special views that I created earlier in order to really highlight these effects that I've created so that the same graphic looks different using different techniques. So I want to add one of the special views that I created for my product. So I am just going to copy this product and paste it. And I am going to go and choose a new view. So I'm going to choose this special view I created with the color and the graphic effect. And now I think I'm good to go and get Ben's feedback. So I'm going to save my space, and then I'm going to comment to Ben again and just let him know range is ready for your feedback. And let's hope he likes it. So back to you, Ben.
All right. Do you mind hitting done out of there?
Sure.
There we go. I'm going to do this, and I will share my screen once again. And get back in because I want to check out this work. So what I'm going to do, you can see here, right? Should be able to get in. Yes, I can. All right. So I've received the notification from Ellie, and now I know I can come in here and check things out. So I can zoom in tight, look at the different variants that she has set up for me. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, but maybe I can take something like this, and these are 3D assets, right? She's added these variants from the 3D product, so you can simply go in to each of these variants and check that variant out in full 3D. So now I can actually interact with this, check out the technique that she applied to this graphic here. And so that looks great. I can go to something else, for instance, do that here. Same thing. I can check out the embroidery effect technique that she added to this garment. So I can do that, zoom in tight, see that, interact. Or I can even go directly to that product by clicking on the link down here. So One thing I did notice is that I'd like to make a little bit of a small change to this product up here. I didn't quite like the color of the stripes, so I can actually go here, go directly to this product. I can then take my main fabric, maybe change its color to something maybe like this, maybe more of a gray. I can, maybe I would like to potentially lose the all over print, so I can just see the base color down below. Maybe I'll select something a little different here. Oh, wrong one. There we go. And then maybe change the color of the graphic itself to something different as well. And then resave this particular variant. You see it's highlighted in green. This is where I entered from the space. Once I save this variant, then I can go back to my board. And you'll see that it is updated with my change. Okay, so right then and there, in the area in which this variant was applied here and also over here, so I can make one change and it automatically updates all of the assets within this space. So what I can do now is I can now comment back to Ellie here and just say, hey, made a small change to one of the T's. Otherwise, good to go to strike off. All right. And we are done. We are good. So that finalizes it, right, Ellie?
Yep. So I hope that this has given a good example of how a creative process can work from start to finish with a buyer and the designer collaborating effectively, seeing changes in real time, all online without having to worry about 2D patterns, and just really going back and forth on that process and getting real time feedback. And, this isn't just, talking about it as an example. I've seen this work firsthand in real life. I used to lead product development and design teams in the industry. And I also had this concern about where to focus my DPC energy. I had huge amounts of fashion lines going through the 3D process, and I was neglecting my core. But then I got introduced to the Embody platform, and it changed the way I worked. I trained a couple of my designers in less than a day to work on the platform, and it was very lucky. I then got a brief from one of my customers for their new collection. These designers, with less than a day's training, worked on 250 variants. 250 designs in 2 days. Now, this was amazing because my 3D technicians were super happy that they weren't getting bogged down with all of these design variations. My 2D designers were super happy because they could, process these changes by themselves. And my buyer was over the moon because she was able to see 3D where she hadn't been able to before, come into the platform, see the range build, not just have to go through products one by one. And she was so happy with the process that by, after 3 times of working this way, we were able to go directly from the range building to our gold seals. So you can imagine the productivity increase, the cost savings, and the speed to market gains that I got. So with that, I think we can open the floor to any questions that have come through.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben and Ellie. We see one question here. It says, what about 3D technicians that see much of their design work in 3D being taken over by 2D fashion designers? Do you see a lot of pushback here?
So I'll probably take this one. I would say the answer is no, not really. Even though they may have that fear initially, once they realize what Embody actually does, then they realize that they're able to work on the things that they really enjoy and the things that they're best at, which is, yeah, creating these new shapes, these new silhouettes. And the only thing that is taken away from them are things that tend to bug them anyway. I know that my 3D team used to sometimes like sigh when they would see me coming downstairs thinking, oh my gosh, is she going to ask to rescale this graphic by like 10% or change the color slightly? I just want to start my other work and get these models finished. So it's definitely not replacing 3D technicians. It's just about, as we were talking about earlier, aligning the right tools with the right people in the process. So yeah, once it was introduced, then everybody just loved it.
Thank you, Ellie. So with that, that brings us to the end of the session. If you could cast our thank you slide, Ben, please. We encourage everyone to follow us on all of our social media platforms to get updates on what's the newest and latest with our Embody platform. And also keep in touch. If you want to receive a personalized demo, you can contact us at team@embody.com or visit our website, embody.com. With that, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode in early 2024. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
everyone. Goodbye.